Kyoto, Japan. Once Japan's ancient capital, this city is world-renowned for its traditional architecture, its Gion district where geishas still roam, as well as beautiful temples and its equally stunning shrines. In November, the fall colours explode into bright reds and yellows. On paper, it's a photographer's paradise, with Instagram-worthy images at every turn. But in reality, what's it really like to visit and shoot in Kyoto? Kyoto is simply popular. Very popular. It's popular with the Japanese and international tourists, especially when you accidentally turn up on holiday weekend. However, even though the streets can be crowded and overwhelming, at the right place, at the right time, it's still possible to find moments of solitude. So join us as we discover Kyoto, show what it's really like to shoot here, and do our best to avoid the crowds. So we've come to Kiyomizu-dera this evening, and it is an absolute zoo. I think we've come on a Saturday, and also I think it's Labour Day, a Japanese holiday, and honestly it is insane. I was hoping to come here, and I heard you could kind of set up a tripod at one of the viewpoints, wait it out, watch the sunset, watch the lights come on, but no, not a chance at all. Luckily we kind of came further down and I was able to use a longer lens and use my kind of height as an advantage, shooting with lots of high ISOs right above my head, shooting back at the pagoda rather than the main temple. So I did still manage to get some shots that kind of came out all right, like cropping out those crowds with the longer lens. But yeah, maybe if you can get here on a quieter day or a quieter evening, then it would be worth it, but it was absolute chaos. I've had a few other tips in regards to shooting the streets of Kyoto with a few less crowds, potentially in the middle of the night, hopefully first thing in the morning, so we will be trying that. The first photo stop in Kyoto, maybe not a success, maybe some good shots, but the experience was definitely pretty anxiety-inducing. So now the sun's pretty much gone down and it's started raining. It has calmed down a little bit, and we've come away from the traditional viewing platform to get a slightly different view with a lot less people. And I've got my beautiful photography assistant here now holding the umbrella for me as it rains. And we might just wait until the lights come on the temple, because I believe it does get lit up and some of the trees get lit up as well. So we'll wait maybe 10, 15 more minutes for those to light up and hopefully get another shot from here. So we got kicked out probably just before the lights were going to properly come on. Apparently it closes at 5 right now. I could have sworn it was 6, but might not have got the ideal lights on in the building for that shot, but I think it still turned out pretty okay. So it's 5:30 a.m. This is going to be the first attempt at photographing the streets of Kyoto, hopefully with a lot less crowds. There's a lot less people on this main road, but to be honest with you, I'm not super hopeful that there won't be anyone around in the streets of the old town, but let's wait and see. I arrived an hour before sunrise to find several photographers already in place. And as time went on, the crowd grew, and they even brought their own models with them. Photographers only moving out of position when a car came past, on what, to be honest, I thought was a pedestrianised street. However, the scramble to get back into a prime spot for a composition was pretty entertaining. So definitely a relatively unpleasant experience photographing Kyoto this morning. It's just super busy. There was a photographer there that said it wasn't like this yesterday, kind of shooting this very famous shot with the pagoda down the end of the street. But it got pretty tense almost. Photographers interlocking tripods, trying to all get the exact same spot, because there's only really a small fraction where the pagoda doesn't get covered by the trees or by the building on the other side. So there's probably about a 5 foot wide gap where you don't get that interference. So everyone's kind of fighting for that. And obviously, you know, I'm here, I'm part of that problem. but I might try again on another morning because, yeah, like I said, apparently it wasn't that busy the other morning, so maybe it will be worth trying again. But yeah, I don't like shooting like that. I don't think anyone really does. Like at one point there was even like a model that came down wearing kind of traditional Japanese clothing and walked up and down the street for a photography workshop, but I'm not super into that, in all honesty. I'd rather just shoot the streets rather than have that. And if I have something like that in the frame, I'd rather it be a bit more natural in this situation rather than a model. But yeah, kind of making me miss the quiet morning in the Rockies at the moment. But yeah, we'll try again. So this is Kinkaku-ji Temple, or the Golden Pavilion, it's kind of famously known as. And you'll see it recommended a lot on photography blogs about Kyoto. And you can see the Golden Pavilion just here, kind of behind the crowd. But again, a bit of a weird photography experience here in Kyoto. This whole place is actually on a one-way system, so you have to kind of take pictures as you walk around because you can't come back. And they actually have guards here that are making sure that you don't go back on yourself. So there's no kind of scouting out a composition and waiting for the light or anything like that. It's just very rushed. Not necessarily a great experience for photography, and in all honesty, even sightseeing, it's probably a bit much right now. But I mean, we might wait around for a little bit and hope the crowds die off just before it closes. But yeah, not maybe living up to the Instagram pictures you see online. This is more the reality of it. So I'm not actually hating some of the pictures that I'm getting here, but I'm having to hold my camera incredibly high above my head to get over the crowd, and also shooting at a bit of a longer focal length, like a 50mm at the moment, to try and crop out some of the general crowd. But I'm enjoying the images that I'm getting, but I didn't say I'm enjoying the experience all that much. I don't know, what do you think being here as a non-photographer?
No.
Just no?
I think it's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. I've mentioned it multiple times already in this video, but obviously this is a holiday weekend, so I don't know if it's normally like this, but I really don't think it's a case of there being, you know, just a peaceful reflection in a peaceful temple. You can't even set up tripods here, so there's no way you're going to be doing like a long exposure to smooth out any water. You have to get really lucky and get here on a perfect day and hope there's no crowds, I suppose. So the subject matter here is really good. Like, the Golden Temple contrasts really nicely with all the foliage around it. You get that reflection in the lake. Obviously, it's just a shame that you can't use some of those photography techniques you might normally use in a situation like this. Because you can't bring tripods, there's no long exposures, there's no smoothing out the water, there's no filters really. So I'm either having to shoot at a very high ISO to make sure I get a fast shutter speed and a sharp shot, or I'm shooting at a low aperture, or kind of an f4, f5 aperture. So I am getting a bit of kind of almost like a slightly softer foreground or midground. So I'm focusing on the temple, and then the trees around it will appear a little bit soft, which probably isn't a bad thing. It kind of gives a little bit of a dreamy look to it all anyway. And to be honest with you, I think some of those shots that I've taken today will come out really nicely. Probably some of the best shots I've taken in Kyoto. But the experience is pretty stressful. But I would recommend visiting here, even at busier times if you're a photographer. Come in the evening and the light perfectly kind of lights up the Golden Temple and it reflects it really nicely. So it's still worth a visit, even though it is completely hectic, and probably the most worthwhile place we've been to for photography whilst in Kyoto. So for our second sunrise in Kyoto, we've come to Fusihimi Inari, or those famous red gates. We're just walking through them now. And we came super early. It's about a 30 or 40 minute train ride away from Kyoto. But we got here at kind of just after 5 o'clock, maybe 20 past, so it's still pretty dark. But it's quiet, and it's the first time we've been somewhere that's quiet in our whole time here. And as well, it's actually lit up in the night time. So I've got a few images already that I don't mind at all, and you get these really cool shadows on the floor, kind of crisscrossing light as they pierce through the gates, but there's a bit more to this complex than I expected. So it's a bit of a walk all the way to the top, and getting here early has meant we've kind of made our way to the top, or close to the top, with essentially nobody else here, because anyone who's arriving now is still like a 30-minute walk away from where we are. So we may have finally found some photography quiet. So kind of pleasantly surprised at this shrine and this location that there is more than just red gates in a way. Like all the pictures you see online are just purely the red gates. But further up here, kind of towards the summit of Mount Inari, we're getting all these lovely kind of lanterns as well by the side of the path, the red gates, the green foliage. There's actually some good compositions to be had here, I think.
As we made our way back down, the crowds definitely started to catch up with us. But to be fair, there was also lots of friendly cats.
So it's about 7:30 now, and the crowds are definitely picking up. But if you pick a composition and just kind of bide your time and be patient, you can still get some shots without anybody in them, even if you have to take a couple of different frames to edit people out. But patience is definitely the name of the game, and the earlier you can start, the better.
And by the time we were done, just before 9 AM, the place was shoulder to shoulder. But there were still some secret sections of solace nearby.
And a lovely little bonus of this shrine is this little bamboo trail that's just off the path. So this is the second morning kind of attempting to shoot on this street. It's probably not quite as busy as it was on Saturday morning, but it's no longer a holiday. But obviously it's still a super popular spot. And it's a bit of a strange one because you're kind of really dictated by the first person that gets here and where they choose to shoot from. So you turn up and there's already other people here. So now I can't go any further forward. So I'm getting this kind of pretty bad glare from this lamp on the right-hand side, and also a bit more interference from the trees on the left. But yeah, at the moment I can't really go any further forward to get rid of those kind of distractions without getting in the way of other people, which is a bit of a shame. Also a little bit windier today, so the longer exposures are making the trees super blurred on the left-hand side. Again, like if we go further forward, we could get rid of those trees entirely. But I might just have to shoot from here, and I'm just kind of using my hand to block the glare from that lamp, and then I hope that turns out.
And as always, the crowds grew. The wedding photo shoots turned up and stood on the road for a little bit too long, and then we finished off with another random model.
So that was a little bit more of a successful attempt this morning, mainly just due to the fact that the random model that turned up this morning was a bit more photogenic with the red umbrella and the Camino. But yeah, definitely getting pretty hectic right now. And I don't know, I'd like to know what your opinions are on, say, the couple that are getting their wedding photos done. Like obviously it's a public street, you can kind of do whatever you please. You can't really criticise people too much for wanting pictures in front of the scene, but to kind of set yourself up there for, you know, kind of an hour and a half, 2 hours, and kind of stand in front of hundreds of other photographers and people with their phones. I don't know, what do you feel? Is that good etiquette, or should you kind of be avoiding doing that? But yeah, let me know what you think. 7 AM now, and definitely time to call it a day on the photography front, I think. The streets are starting to get pretty busy, so I'll pop the camera away for the rest of the day and just kind of enjoy the day a little bit. Probably pull it back out this afternoon. We've got a little place in mind that we want to visit, like a shrine on the outskirts of Kyoto, which from what I hear isn't as busy, especially kind of close to closing time, and also has some brilliant fall foliage. So fingers crossed that will be the serenity we've been looking for. On one of our final evenings here in Kyoto, we finally found somewhere that's actually pretty quiet. And it's actually some of the best foliage that we've seen, best autumn foliage that we've seen here in Japan as well. It's a little bit on the outskirts. It's called Daigo-Ji Temple, and the colours here are stunning. You still can't use tripods, but getting plenty of nice shots here just because the foliage is so good. So that's it for our time in Kyoto. It was definitely as beautiful as it was chaotic. And I think I got some pretty decent shots from the few days we spent there, but I don't know if the experience of getting them was necessarily all that enjoyable. Now, obviously Kyoto is massive. It's much larger than I thought it was. And there are lots of little places you could visit on the outskirts of Kyoto and definitely find your own personal little havens in and around the city. But you have to be prepared to put the work in to find those places. But the last bit of advice is definitely try and avoid any holidays, try and avoid the weekends there as well, and hopefully you can find some shots yourself. And I know Kyoto is probably on the list for most people who visit Japan, but spending time in Kyoto definitely did make us appreciate those quieter places that we visited beforehand, like Kanazawa and Takayama. But either all, it's all really worth seeing, and hopefully some of my pictures turned out all right. And hopefully I'll see you on the next one.